Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about my day 2 update for my Lightning Strike Warden. Yesterday we kind of talked about how you can actually level efficiently, bark skin, all that good stuff. Then we talked about early maps, how to progress. And today will be all about getting into endgame. I just got a ship right here. Wow. With endgame, I basically mean pushing into red maps, getting your defenses tight. I already talked about in the last video, kind of getting armor base, but I'm going to get a little bit more into tinctures this time around. And even more than that, I will also get into gloves because those are quite important. First up, I'm going to quickly show you a run. So I'll talk about this Atlas passive tree at the end of the video because I think this is really good for Lightning Strike to make some early money. But in general, we're doing quick maps with Searing Altar. We have strong boxes in there, shrines to make us a little bit stronger. But in general, it's also about Legion. Now, usually I would, if it was a good layout like Beach, I would chug in also a Legion Scarab. But in this case, I will just... Oh, we got level 2. In this case, I will just do the one Legion. I can also put Deli in here. Now, I'll quickly show you how this one works now. Now, you can see that I have a double Tincture set up now. And the fact of the matter is, it is up 100% of the time. Or 95% of the time. Depending on how fast I am with reaction. So this is something you need to get used to. You basically need to press it every 9 to 10 seconds. It's 2 buttons. You put them right next to each other. For me, it is absolutely not a problem because we are already kind of a one-button skill. Actually, I'm going to loot later just for the video. But in general, the clear has substantially increased, and that is because of a few factors I'm going to go into. The biggest one is the +1 strike on my gloves. This is one of those things, just like the mastery, right? This is one of those things that I forget every single league, basically, where I don't, like, I know how strong that mod is, but I always get it too late. Let's just quickly do the Legion right here. I'm not sure if I can do it with 5 stacks right here, but let's just showcase this right here. So currently, I'm still not great on damage. It looks good here, but if you were to go into, for example, an actual daily map or like Affliction or something, you would definitely see some damage lacking. But right now, clear-wise, it is incredible. So I still have some bosses to do. I obviously did the normal Searing Exarch, Eater stuff. We're gonna do Maven and Uber Elder tomorrow. But in general, the defenses are feeling really, really tight now. And I'm super, super happy with the clear. Personally, it usually takes me a little bit longer to ramp like this. This is kind of like, I mean, if you get a Headhunter for this one early, you would absolutely dominate, but I don't even think it's necessary. The clear speed is quite clean even without, but once you have that Headhunter, it's quite big. Now, one of the only issues with the Tincture setup is, like I said, you have to press 2 extra buttons, but the difference in damage is ridiculous. So I will tell you all about it and how you can set it up, how it's the least annoying. So the way I've set up my tinctures is the least annoying way possible. There are other ways to do it as well if you don't care about it, but I've made it as quality of life as possible. I'm having an absolute blast with this right now. I'll see you in Hideout. I gotta loot. I'm poor. But let's talk about tinctures because that's what we're here for. In my pre-league video, I said I'm probably gonna go tinctures in endgame, but I don't know how hard they are to get, how hard they are to roll. Are the mods even that good? Turns out they are incredible. They're even better than we thought. And the setup is really easy. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But I first want to just show you what I currently get from 2 tinctures. So I get 401 increased crit chance, 243 damage, 72% increased attack speed, and 44 LE pen. Out of all these things, while it's not the strongest effect, this 72% attack speed has really catapulted the build into just feeling incredible. Feeling like something that a Deadeye could be, but with more damage. Now, how do you get this? You want 2 different tinctures. One is called Prismatic. It has increased LE damage with attacks. And then Rose Thorn, critical strike chance with melee. Just because people pointed this out, this does not just work for the melee part. It says melee, but it says with a melee weapon. So the projectile part of your Lightning Strike still comes from a melee weapon, so it works. It's not, if it said melee critical strike chance or, I don't know, melee damage or anything like that, it would be different, but it just specifies with melee weapons. We have a melee weapon. Same is true with the suffixes melee weapon damage and melee weapon attack speed. So in general, these are like incredible. But 2 things I want to note is the first one, they're quite easy to roll. If you look at the mod pool right here, there aren't actually that many suffixes, and almost all the prefixes are good in some kind of way. Now, the mod that you really want in prefix is actually increased mana burn rate and increased effect, but increased effect is also good. The increased mana burn rate, I'll show you in a second, does absolutely nothing really to anything. But yeah, you can see right here, these are like what, 3, 4, 5, 12 mods? 12 mods, 13 mods, maybe I miscounted, that you have to roll. So you can just spam alterations on these. Do not sell your alterations. And I mean, if you have seen alteration prices, now you kind of get the gist of why they are a little bit more than usual. Important to note when you're crafting these is if you hover over melee weapon attack speed and the pen, you want an eye level 85, and these can be a little bit more expensive. I think I paid 20 chaos for each of them. If you're just starting out, you can go for lower, but you cannot roll the highest tier, which makes it harder to roll, right? Because even if you're rolling for only 14 to 16, now you have 2 outs instead of 1 if you're going lower. So it's kind of harder to hit. You're just going to spam alterations and augs until you hit either effect. So you can see right here, this one's not perfect. I think this is even, it is tier 1 pen, but is only tier 4 increased effect. I could get up to 35% with the mana burn mod. And this one is actually tier 1 increased effect and tier 1 attack speed, but it's not perfectly divine. And I could get even more effect. As well as that, the quality on tinctures, which is also why glass blowers are like almost 3 chaos right now. The quality on these tinctures is a more multiplier to your effect. So you can see the stats visibly go up on the tincture when you apply quality. And this could be even higher, at least I assume, if you corrupt them, if they're anything like flasks, which I don't want to try right now. I don't have the money to play around with that, but yes, that is something that you could definitely do. So your tinctures could still get, from what I showed you here, your tinctures could probably get 20 to 30% better even. But how do these tinctures actually work? Well, basically what happens is, so you can't do this in your hideout because you're not burning for mana in your hideout. But once I press, let's just press 1, for example. Once I press it, you will see mana burn stacks right here. And these will go up and drain your mana more and more. Whoop, at 12, you will see it all of a sudden disappeared. And that is because I have a certain mastery right here, which is the Tincture Mastery, that deactivates when you have 12 or more mana burn. Why that is, doesn't that kind of sound stupid? I will explain in a second. But basically, when you have 2 of them on and 2 active at the same time, all that will happen is the ramp is faster, but you're actually draining less because now the time in which you drain is shorter. And you might think, oh, that's bad uptime, but that is where Warden comes in, because Warden has tincture effects linger on you for 0.5 seconds per mana burn. So this goes up to 6 seconds if you do the math. At 12 stacks, you perfectly get the 6 seconds linger. So you can see right here with the Tincture CDR, and at 12 exactly, it stops. You get the perfect linger overlap. This is literally, this whole thing is literally made by the devs to make this work. So what I'll show you right here is I will press them, and then after the 12 are over, you will see some buffs up here, which is the linger effect. So it goes to 12, it falls off, and now you have these linger effects. And this is not the best example. Is this actually a temp chains map? It actually is. But usually it would have already fallen off, and now you press again, and it's basically up all the time. So we can wait right here. Boom. It goes out, and we press it again. Usually there would be like, I don't know, maybe 0.5 second time where you can't press it. Obviously human failure, so like human mistakes. So maybe like 0.5 to 1 second where they are not on. One of the things I will say that's cool, it sounds like nothing, but since the attack speed makes your whirling blades so much faster, you will very quickly notice when you do not have your tinctures on. So that means that's also a little bit of a reminder. So to summarize that again, your tinctures have a orange outline here whenever they're on. After, so you click them, right? The mana burn stacks are up top. Mana burn goes from 0 to 12 in about 3 seconds. After those 3 seconds and the 12 stacks, with the mastery, it goes off. The tincture falls off and you get the lingering buffs, once again, up here. And once that happens, you have uptime, and Enduring Suffusion adds another 6 seconds. In this case, obviously temp chain, so it's not a perfect representation. And after that total of 9 seconds, you press them again. So it's basically, if you put them next to each other, it's like a, for me, it's like, boom, I put it on, I do this, boom, and they're on. It is kind of like pressing a divine blessing in a sense, and it has not personally been really annoying, especially since sometimes you don't even need the damage. You're just whirling around and you're like, oh, I'm at a new pack. Let's press it again. Now, you don't want to press it too early though, because if you press it immediately again, it hasn't ramped up yet with its mana burn stacks. So if you double press it, it will actually have bad uptime. But all that really happens then is that you just do it later again. So it's not a perfect solution, but it is, for how powerful it is, in my opinion, the best solution. And the second way you can play it, and I've also seen people play this, is you just, I don't know, just activate it. You don't control it at all, and it will just be up again, right? The reason you can do this is because you have mana leech. So if you, for example, in a map and you're just constantly mana leeching, there are instances where you don't have to press it for like, I don't know, 15 seconds. And it's like, great. But the one problem I have with that is that it will burn down your mana into 0. So what can happen is, for example, you have a no regen map or a no leech map, and at some point you get to 0 mana. And if you're in a very weird situation there, unless your lightning strike literally costs 0 or like 5 or something, you could get into a situation where you get killed because you don't have damage uptime and your leech is not up. We don't really have passive regen or anything like that. So that mana situation might really come back to bite you. And I just really like when they're synced up. I exactly know when to press it. I have the divine blessing in my blood, right? I press it every so often, as long as it's not like 3-4 seconds. I did this on Pathfinder with my life flask. I did this on divine blessing. So this way it's just more efficient for me personally. If you don't want to do that, definitely play around with it. You don't need this mastery. Also, I guess people ask me about the first 6 mana burn applied to you have no effect. I know I said this might be good before the league started, but as you could have seen, the 6 mana burns were like nothing. So that mastery seems completely worthless to, as far as I know. You could take the 10% increased effect so far. I don't think these are all that great. Also, I will not be anointing Nature's Concoction, because what I actually thought was going to happen is, while the effects linger, they still count as being up. But they are not. They're just lingering. That is not the same. Which means that Nature's Concoction is not up all the time. It's only up like 30-40% of the time. So sure, you get a little bit of flash charges here or there. But personally, with how competitive the annoying slot is, I will not be taking this. Okay, so the first part of the info is for everybody, right? Like, this doesn't just have to do with Lightning Strike. This is now specific to the build that I've been running, the Lightning Strike. When can you actually respec if you're playing this exact build? I would say roundabout at level 86 to 90-ish, when you have your armor and Dawnbreaker set up, and I will kind of explain why. So this part of the tree has a ton of efficient points, as you can see right here. Ranger has such efficient nodes that you all want to take. Like, I'm not even done with Mark the Prey, right? That's how efficient this is. And that means that if you do this too early and you go into these too early, you might have to cut some absolute crazy points, which I don't think is worth it. As well as that, you're not even going to have the tinctures. And also, if you don't have your armor or Dawnbreaker set up, you're going to be too goddamn squishy. It's just not going to work out. You first have to work on that, because you will have to remove Bark Skin. And Bark Skin all the way to red map has been a blessing. Just absolutely great. But at this point in red maps, once you are this kind of content, it doesn't make much of a difference. Also, I've seen a lot of people linking me non-armor, non-Dawnbreaker setups that are basically just squishy as hell. I don't judge you. I also don't mind squishy builds, but the thing is, on League Start, a lot of your power comes from the passive tree, and if you're not leveling, you're losing. You're like, there is never a situation where you shouldn't be at least at level 93. I'm probably going to cap out at like 96, 97, and then I'm going to run content where I just get one shot sometimes, right? It is what it is. But up to 93, there's absolutely no excuse, even 95. So that means you should build defensive early, and then once you have the passive points and the currency, now you go into damage, because you're none the faster. You're just missing passives. You're missing power, right? Free power. You are spending divines on small upgrades. Meanwhile, you won't even get the free ones. Then as for tinctures, 1 prismatic, 1 rose thorn. There's also one more tincture that I want to talk about. And there's the oak branch tincture, which gives you 3 rage on melee weapon hit. Now, few reasons why we're not using this. 3 rage is only on melee weapon hit, which doesn't always happen with lightning strike. A lot of your clear will actually just happen with projectiles. But the most important thing is, this doesn't really scale well with percentage increase, right, on anywhere. This is like a good tincture for non-wardens. People who are not Warden would want this, because their tinctures kinda suck. Our tinctures have these mods right here, and if you look at POB, even if you discount the fact that you first need to ramp up rage and it immediately falls off because we have no support and it's super clunky to play with. Even if you discount that, 30% more damage is actually not necessarily more than what this would give you or this would give you. Especially the increased damage is probably just straight up more, and even the crit chance, unless you have perfect gear. So Oak Branch Tincture, not very good. It doesn't scale well with increased effect. Okay, so now you have rage on melee weapon hit. Okay, I get 86% increased effect. It doesn't do anything. Now you go to 5 and it's like, it's wasted. So that's all I would say. If you are a Warden, don't use this. If you are anything else, it's actually pretty good, right? It's not bad, but most likely if you're anything else, you're already in this area right here, and you're already going to have stuff like Veteran's Wrath. Which, by the way, if you wanted rage on this build, this would be a great node to take because it would also delay the inherent rage loss, which is quite annoying. And I guess at the end, what you need as well is you need to respec your Ascendancy into Enduring Suffusion and Experienced Herbalist. So right here, you can see it pretty straightforward. The Shock node, which might make a comeback if you have a kind of a Forbidden Flame, Forbidden Flesh later, and Bark Skin, which isn't very good anymore in red maps. These go away for the Tincture nodes. Also do note that these small nodes are also very strong for increased effect. If you can make the Shock work, you can make a point for cutting Avatar, especially if you're just mapping. I can definitely see that if you're doing Oath of Springs. Personally, I think once you reach endgame and you have a big chunk of lightning damage already, your normal shocks will already be at like 40% or so. So I don't necessarily think Oath of Spring is well positioned on Lightning Strike, but if you're a madman and you want to cut Oath of Winter, which has been so far the most broken node on this whole Ascendancy, then be my guest. It doesn't give any damage technically. And another point I want to make is why were Tinctures a little bit under the radar before release? Some people said they're OP, but most people kind of say, you're losing a flask. What you realize when you play with Tinctures is even if they're not up all the time, even if you're non-Warden, they're still up more at, for example, bosses than any other flask would be. Even 50% uptime, like it is on like a Slayer or a Berserker or something, is still better than you would get from any random utility flask during a boss fight. Not every boss fight has ads, and if you're not a Pathfinder, you probably have 0 sustain. Having that burst of damage is just incredible, and I would honestly, even if you're not playing a Warden, I would highly recommend shooting for one of these Tinctures and just trying it out. There's usually a flask that you can cut for it, and yeah, that's all I can say. Also, flasks did lose their increased attack speed, just so you know. So if you want to get it, it will also be pretty much from a Tincture. Now then, I want to remind you, get +1 strikes on your gloves. Most people know how busted this mod is. I always forget about it. I'm always like, oh, Lightning Strike needs +1 strikes, and then it's fine. But yes, it's fine. You can now double hit single target, but in terms of clear, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's basically akin to getting +2 projectiles from your Deadeye, and all of a sudden your build just feels infinitely better. And if you see at the start when I do the map, the difference to my day 1 footage mostly comes from this. It's not just the attack speed. It's just absolutely incredible. Now, what should you do to get these? Because spamming them can be quite expensive. If this is later in the league, it's not going to be as expensive. You could probably, it depends on when you're watching this, but if you're watching it right now, you will have to spam these. And I have an Atlas strat where you can basically farm them yourselves, but it can take you 50 to 100 to get this mod. So they're like a chaos right now, so you could also be selling them. That means you want to put it on good gloves. Now, good gloves will kind of look like this. If you don't know, there's an Alva mod that has 3 different versions. So right here, you can see that the cold res and the damage with hits against chilled enemies is actually a hybrid mod. These are both the same suffix. This is a temple suffix that you can drop with Alva and in the temple, right? And it is ridiculous. It gives you a tier 1 cold res, and then it also gives you up to 50% increased damage. There's also a fire res version with flat fire damage to ignited enemies, and there is a version with crit chance to shocked enemies with lightning res, but you want the chilled one. However, what some people don't know is you can actually res swap these. So you can buy whatever you want. You can buy the shock version, the fire damage version, or the chill version, which are right here on Craft of Exile if you don't know. These 3 mods right here, and you can res swap them. So you can go to Harvest, for example, and if you swap the cold res to lightning, it will also swap damage to shield enemies to crit chance against shocked enemies. So you can basically swap that. I see this a lot because this is the most sought after mod. In terms of efficiency, 50% increased damage is just better than the other 2 most of the time. So that's what everybody wants. So they're more expensive, but all you have to do is like swap it with Harvest. It currently costs like 5 chaos or something. And this way you can also divine it, right? So you can swap it back and forth, and the roll will change. This is why I have a perfect roll of 50% here. So don't waste your money. But the second thing is you want other good mods. You want attack speed or chaos res or spell suppression. Or like I have right here, I got lucky. I bought these for 3 divines. I actually spent a lot on these because I wanted a good pair. I think gloves are incredibly important for these kind of strike builds. I got tier 2 chaos res and tier 1 attack speed. And those are premium. Those are the 2 best mods you can get, followed by spell suppression. The reason spell suppression is not as good as in other builds is because we can easily fix it. We would maybe save a point or 2, but we can easily get spell suppress cap without any problems. It's still good, as is if you just got a random resistant as your first suffix. Prefix wise, you want life and then armor and evasion percentage. Important here, I actually have one of the new bases, Chimera Scale Gauntlet. There is new bases that go up. Do not just buy some trash evasion base that has 0 armor or an armor base that has absolutely no evasion. I mean, maybe an armor base would actually be fine. Then you couldn't roll spell suppress, but it's not the end of the world. Strength is also okay, or res. But in general, that's what you want to do. All right, so you got your gloves. You've spammed lesser average embers on it, and now you have a +1 additional strikes. What you will notice is that at tier 5, this actually goes up to +2, which is another game changer. Not as big as getting the second strike, because one you already get from the Pastry. Getting the third strike is not as big of a deal, but it is still a big deal. This is something we're going to do later, and I'm also going to describe how to craft it, but for now, this is all you need to know. Now, what else did I upgrade? First up, I went for a Anoint, and I went for Disciple of the Unyielding. Since we're not Shock anymore, I will not be going for Static Blows. I simply do not need it. You could go for some freeze shenanigans, like freeze duration, but honestly, the freeze is already so good. Disciple of the Unyielding. This gives you a minimum endurance charges, which is straight up 4% less LE damage taken and less fizz damage taken. But then while you're mapping, you're also getting up to 24% increased damage and another 2 endurance charges. I think this one is extremely efficient, and the Anoint right now costs like 8 chaos. The only other Anoint I'm looking at right now is Sion's Ambition, which means that enemies that get targeted from the additional strikes, you can hit 40% further away. This one I'm probably going to get pretty damn soon. But for now, the endurance charges are extremely potent. This is probably really good once you get +2 strikes on your gloves. Another small tech, I guess, which I just bought, which I completely forgot about, is Tattoo of the Thessalia Warrior. Just put it somewhere and get 5% chance to blind enemies, which is a very potent stat. You hit so much, it's always going to be up. And it just means you basically get more evasion. These currently go for 60 chaos right now. So put them somewhere where you know you're not going to respec them. And also, it's not high priority. So if you don't have the money right now, do it later. I also automated my flasks, both my granite flask and my jade flask. Now, if you don't want to roll these yourself, a good trick, which doesn't always work, because especially when I say it, but if you have 2 flasks like granite and jade, and everybody just always thinks, oh, granite equals armor, jade equals evasion. If you just get them the other way around, often you will get stuff for 10 chaos that usually cost like 100. I'm just telling you right now, it might not work for you, but it always works for me on League Start. So I just get a jade with percentage armor and a granite with percentage evasion, and it's exactly the same. Also, don't forget to quality your flasks, although this is a lot more expensive than it usually is because glass blowers are so expensive, but it is definitely worth it for the uptime. We're not a Pathfinder after all. Otherwise, I guess I got 1 jewel here, which is just attack speed, life, perfect rolls, and then a fire res, which actually I don't need right now, but I was like, okay, I have a jewel open. I don't want to spend too much. The good ones cost like a divine, so it is what it is. And at the end, I'll quickly talk about this right here. I'll leave this atlas down below in the description. This is nowhere near min-maxed. I'm already at the 3rd tree because I experimented around quite a bit and I don't have perfect order of my makings. I'm still going to link you this down below so you can kind of do this. In order to do this, you need to have your defenses up because otherwise you're going to die to Legion. You will have to have the +1 additional strikes and a decent claw because otherwise you cannot even break open all the Legion stuff. But I'll just say right here that even if you cannot break everything open, Legion is just incredible. Even if the scarabs go up, which I'm currently using, just the rusted ones, the polished ones are quite expensive. Even should they go up, which I don't think they will, just skip them and just do the normal legions. I mean, you're making like 3 chaos there, 5 chaos there. You're dropping a lot of bubblegum currency, and some of these, like for example, instilling orbs and especially Glassbur's bubbles, are actually quite expensive. As well as that, I mean, you can look at the stuff that I dropped at the start of the video when I did the map. That is exactly with this tree right here. And yeah, it just works perfectly because Lightning Strike is very much like for example, a bow build, and it has good clear once you invest into additional strikes. So it just works. And what I'm currently doing is just run any map I find, but the best map for this would definitely be Jungle Valley. On Jungle Valley, you would not get the boss altars and only get the minion rewards, which gives you a ton of these bad boys right here, which once again, you need to make all your gear. You need it to get reduced mana cost of attacks on your helmet. You need it to get, I think, in this case, crit multi, which is not the one I want. I want fortify, but whatever. On your chest, and you needed to get +1 additional strikes. You also needed to get action speed on your boots, which I'm actually going to roll for, but only once I have good boots. But yeah, on the side, everything I farmed up has been with this right here. You also drop a few scarabs that you can sell or just throw into your map as you want. This is a very straightforward tree. I'm sure I'm going to have like a little bit more of a min-maxed version. If you're wondering why Strongbox is, I just had some points open and it doesn't slow you down. I just wanted to do as many maps as possible because most of your money straight up comes from altars and then the free Legion as well. So yeah, hope you guys are going to make some money as well. Get those upgrades. Hope some of the questions have been answered. I will be doing more updates, obviously. Not sure if it's going to be straight tomorrow because I will be doing bosses, unlocking more of the league mechanic, which right now I've up to like, I think tier 8. So far my shipments have mostly been garbage. If you guys want to have a good video, actually, I'll leave it down below in the description by Ziggy D. He has a really good video about the league mechanic in general. There's a good chance I'll make one as well, but that needs further time. But yeah, hope this answered some questions, and yeah, really happy that this build worked out the way it did. And I'm probably going to improve the character quite a bit. I usually dip out after like 20-30 days because I want to reroll, but this build has just been ramping. I mean, it's Lightning Strike. It's going to be an incredible endgame build. It's going to be one of the premier endgame builds in whatever form. But yeah, hope you guys' league starts are going well. And since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.